Reaction to what happened today?
Oh, I think it was a completely arbitrary and capricious decision. You heard in my opening statement that based on the facts, if they were to make such a decision, that it would be ripe for judicial review. The reason Nick didn't testify is because we're not getting an impartial hearing. This isn't fair. This was a kangaroo court. And you heard the commissioner's decision was not based on the facts. It wasn't based on the evidence. One commissioner says, your attorneys were very persuasive, but you don't respect us. So here's a 5-year ban and a ton of money that we're going to take back. So it wasn't based on the facts, and the commission even misinterpreted their own regulations regarding the Fifth Amendment. So we plan to address that with a court of competent jurisdiction, and we're confident that that they'll see the errors of the commission's ways.
What do you think would have been a reasonable outcome?
Based on the evidence given, I think they could have decided to discipline him solely on the questionnaire, a year suspension with a small monetary fine.
Actually, they should have dismissed the complaint. There was no basis for it. Level of animosity is incredible. It guarantees a court challenge here. It was abuse of discretion through and through.
What's the process from here?
Petition for judicial review.
Court review.
Filed within 30 days.
We'll have to correct it. Court.
And you have a bigger problem here. You really have a bigger problem than Nick Diaz. As we were diving into all this information with our expert here, there are no standard protocols that these athletes are tested for drugs, which every athlete that's subject to the commission should be extremely, extremely worried about that. Because you're going to get inconsistent results. You can't get reliable results. Any drug testing program in this country has standards of protocol. Go online and try to find the commission's protocols. There are none. And when they do use a WADA-accredited lab, they don't want to rely on that. Right? So it's very scary that there's no review process for these athletes, that there's no consistent protocol, and that they can be fined and lose their livelihood without any due process of the law. It's a bigger issue than Nick Diaz. It's an abhorrent abuse of discretion. It really is terrible.
Is there any concern? I mean, that the commission seemed to point out the disappointment in the fact that Nick didn't speak. I mean, is there any question that maybe that was an incorrect strategy or an incorrect decision?
Absolutely not. He has the same right as any American citizen does to not be compelled to give testimony against himself. And you saw for yourself the evident partiality, indeed the level of animosity that was expressed against this top fighter after all that he's done for this sport. He had no fair hearing. He wasn't going to get one. It was a preordained outcome. And he properly invoked the Fifth.
Do you have an expectation of what the appeal process, how long it will take, what will it entail?
Litigation is not fast, but the petition for review was 30 days. It has to be filed, so you would expect results to filter in 60, 90 days after that. You know, the process gets going, but it's not fast.
Do you feel had Nick had some sort of statement prepared as opposed to giving the Fifth, that it would have helped his case in any sort of way?
No, because once he makes a statement and moves off the Fifth, he waives the Fifth. And Commissioner Lundvall was not interested in eliciting testimony. She wanted to embarrass Nick Diaz. If you could see through the animosity. She asked questions like, do you speak English? Do you read English? She's out there to embarrass this gentleman, and he was, on advice of counsel, he was told to plead the Fifth on every question.
What about the pre-fight questionnaire that they had brought up and referenced in the meeting, stating that it seemed to have been altered in some way? Was there anything that caught your attention about that pre-fight questionnaire, that it looked like it had been changed in any sort of way?
No, I don't think they brought that up. I think what they were referencing is that we amended our response to their complaint this morning with respect to the pre-fight questionnaire, from a strict denial to an admission in part that he may have provided an incorrect answer, but not willfully or maliciously. It was through mistake.
Exactly.
Would you mind explaining just one more time why you declined to have the B sample tested? Was it mostly just because you were not confident in the testing procedure that had gone on anyway, so testing the B sample wouldn't have...
As the doctor testified to, in a normal setting, outside of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, which we said doesn't have any protocols in place. So any regulated testing in this country, when an individual who tests positive requests that their B specimen be retested, it doesn't get tested at the same lab, right? That would be like saying, I'd like the same person to slap me twice, right? They send it to a different lab to have a second layer of impartiality, right? So we already had 2 negative tests buttressing the positive test. So we didn't feel there was any need for a B specimen at the same lab that gave us the erroneous result to begin with. We had 2 negative tests at cutoff concentrations well below the cutoff level, and they ignored those. They ignored those tests.
I'm not sure how many fighters that you've represented in cases like this, but I wanted to know if it is common to see 3 test results and yet 2 going different places. Is that common?
It's very uncommon. And to send specimens collected by different protocols and different methods to 2 separate labs that are accredited by different agencies, you're asking for inconsistent results. And that's what they got here, and they just ignored that. They took 3, they took the one that they liked, and they imposed a massive amount of discipline that's not warranted by the facts or the evidence.
There was no reliable scientific evidence. And the questionnaire didn't matter because they didn't plead that in their complaint. So instead, what you saw was the commission reaching back years to talking about how they were so affronted. And what did you hear over and over again? A lack of disrespect. This became a personality conflict with this commission. That's a per se abuse of discretion. Requires us to go to court to correct it. Indeed, we will.
Was there any consideration whatsoever to just not have Nick come? If you knew he wasn't going to answer questions, just have him not be here?
No, that wasn't a consideration because they had subpoenaed his attendance, and by not attending, they could have drawn a negative inference against him legally. They did it anyways, but it's our position that that negative inference was done so in legal error. We think Commissioner Lundvall was wrong, both on the law of her regulations and not giving proper credence to the United States Constitution.